The first thing Dante Ricci saw was the velvet pouch in Ruby Carter's trembling hand. The second thing he saw was his fiancée smiling behind her. Not crying. Not frightened. Smiling. The penthouse suite at the Aurelia Palms Resort looked like a war had passed through it. White towels were thrown across the marble floor. Champagne glasses glittered in broken pieces near the gold-legged coffee table. The king-size bed was half-stripped, one corner of its expensive linen hanging loose like a surrendered flag. And in the middle of it all stood Ruby. She wore the pale cream uniform of the cleaning staff, the one that never fit her body right, no matter how many times she tried to smooth it down. Her cheeks burned red. Her dark curls were coming loose from the tight bun, the staff manager demanded. One hand gripped the velvet pouch. The other curled around the edge of the cleaning cart as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. Bianca Moretti stood near the balcony doors in a white silk dress, diamond earrings, and perfect lipstick. She looked like a bride from a magazine, untouchable and expensive, but her voice cut through the room like broken glass. "She stole from me," Bianca said. Dante did not move. His men filled the doorway behind him. All black suits and silent violence. Even the air changed when he entered. The room seemed to shrink around him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black shirt open at the throat, tattoos disappearing beneath the cuffs of his sleeves. His face was calm in a way that made people more afraid, not less. Ruby had seen powerful men before. The hotel was full of them. Men who snapped their fingers for service. Men who threw money at problems. Men who looked through women like Ruby as if she were part of the furniture. Dante Ricci did not look through her. He looked directly at her. Coldly. Completely. And for one terrible second, Ruby understood how people felt right before a storm took the roof off their house. Bianca moved closer to him, placing a delicate hand on his arm. I came in and found her holding that pouch. She was going through our things. She ruined the suite. Dante. Look at this mess. Ruby swallowed. Her throat felt raw, even though she had barely spoken. That's not true, she said. Bianca laughed softly. Of course you would say that. Ruby looked at Dante. Nodded Bianca. Something in her refused to lower her eyes, even though every survival instinct in her body screamed at her to do exactly that. I found it under the bed, Ruby said. While changing the sheets, Dante's gaze dropped to the pouch. Open it, he ordered. His voice was low, controlled, dangerous enough that one of the junior hotel managers standing behind the bodyguards went pale. Ruby placed the pouch on the table and opened it with stiff fingers. Inside was a burner phone, a hotel master key, and a folded note. Dante stepped closer. Bianca's smile faded by half an inch. Ruby unfolded the paper. Dante's suite number was circled in red. Beneath it were 3 words written in a sharp, slanted hand. After midnight, the room went still. Bianca recovered quickly. That means nothing. She could have written that herself. Ruby looked at her then. For most of her life, Ruby Carter had learned the strange art of swallowing humiliation without choking on it. She had been laughed at by guests who thought cruelty sounded sophisticated. She had been corrected by managers who cared more about rich people's moods than poor people's dignity. She had been told to stand straighter, smile smaller, move faster, take up less space. But something about Bianca's beauty made the insult sharper. Maybe because Bianca knew everyone would believe her. Maybe because Bianca did not need to shout to destroy someone. Ruby picked up the burner phone, pressed the power button, and watched the screen glow to life. The device had no password. One contact was saved in it. Not a phone number, a name. Levy. Vale Penthouse, key active. Ruby turned the screen toward Dante. Her voice shook, but it did not break. Then ask her, Ruby said, why your sweet key is saved under another man's name. For the first time since he entered the room, Dante Ricci looked away from Ruby. He looked at Bianca, and the temperature of the entire penthouse seemed to drop. Bianca's hand slipped from his arm. Dunch, she whispered. You cannot seriously believe a hotel maid over me. Ruby flinched at the word maid, not because the job embarrassed her. It never had. Honest work was honest work. But Bianca said it like a punishment, like a stain. Dante said nothing. That silence terrified everyone more than rage would have. He reached for the phone. But Ruby did not hand it over immediately. His eyes flicked back to hers, dark and unreadable. You don't trust me, he said. Ruby's fingers tightened around the device. I don't know you. A faint shift passed across his expression. It was not amusement. Not exactly. More like surprise that she had answered him at all. You know what I am, Dante said. Yes, Ruby replied. That's why I'm still holding it. Behind him, one of the bodyguards looked at her as if she had just stepped off a cliff. Dante's mouth did not smile, but his eyes sharpened. What do you think I am? Ruby forced herself to breathe. A man people are afraid to tell the truth to. The words landed harder than she expected. Bianca snapped. Enough of this. Dante lifted one hand. Bianca stopped speaking. The gesture was small, almost lazy, but it silenced her completely. Dante took the phone from Ruby's hand. Their fingers brushed. It lasted less than a second. Still, Ruby felt it everywhere. Not gentle, not romantic, just heat, presence, a dangerous kind of attention. Dante looked down at the screen, then at the master key, then at the note. Who assigned you this room? He asked. Ruby glanced toward the doorway, where Mr. Corman, the staff manager, stood sweating through his collar. He did, Ruby said. Corman almost choked. Mr. Ricci. I assure you, Dante did not look at him. Did I ask you to speak? Corman's mouth closed. Ruby felt a strange, unwanted satisfaction at that, then shame for feeling it. She didn't want anyone's fear to become her comfort. She just wanted someone to stop making her feel invisible. Dante turned the burner phone in his hand. When did you find it? 10 minutes ago. Why didn't you call security? I tried. Ruby lifted her chin. She came in before I reached the hallway. Bianca's face tightened. Because I caught her. Ruby stared at the floor for one breath, gathering the last of her courage. Then she looked back at Dante. She didn't catch me, Ruby said. She stopped me. The bodyguard shifted. Dante's gaze returned to Bianca. There was something brutal in his calm. Leave us, he said. Bianca blinked. Excuse me, leave us. Dunch. This is insulting. No. His voice lowered. Insulting is discovering a burner phone beneath my bed with a key to my suite connected to the name of a man who should not know where I sleep. Bianca's lips parted. Ruby saw it then. Not fear. Calculation. Bianca Moretti was not shocked. She was adjusting. Dante saw it too. Take her downstairs, he said to one of his men. Do not let her leave the resort. Bianca's eyes flashed. You cannot detain me like one of your criminals. Dante stepped closer to her, and all the silk confidence around her seemed suddenly thin. My criminals know better than to lie badly. For 1 second, Bianca's mask cracked. Hatred moved across her beautiful face so fast, Ruby almost missed it. Then Bianca turned toward Ruby. This is your fault, she whispered. You have no idea what you just stepped into. Ruby believed her. That was the problem. Bianca left with 2 bodyguards, her heels striking the marble like tiny gunshots. The moment she was gone, Ruby realized she was alone in a penthouse suite with Dante Ricci. Not completely alone. His men remained near the entrance, but emotionally, dangerously. The room had narrowed until there seemed to be only two people inside it. Dante walked to the balcony doors and looked out over Palm Springs. Outside, the resort shimmered beneath the desert afternoon. Pools glowed turquoise between palm trees. White cabanas lined the water. Wealthy guests lay beneath umbrellas, drinking cocktails, laughing without knowing that the most powerful mafia boss in the West was standing above them with a possible death note in his hand. Ruby should have been afraid. She was. But beneath the fear was anger. Her life was already hard enough without rich people turning her into evidence. "Am I allowed to go?" she asked. Dante turned. "No." Ruby gave a small, humorless laugh. "Of course." His eyes narrowed. "You find this funny. I find it familiar. Being accused. Being trapped in rooms where the people with power decide what I am before I speak." That landed between them quietly. Dante studied hair. Ruby hated how much attention he gave. Hated that his silence felt like hands on her skin. Hated that part of her. The tired and foolish part. Wanted to believe he might be different simply because he had listened for longer than most. He walked toward her. Ruby stepped back. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "I won't hurt you," he said. "People like you don't have to hurt people personally." His jaw tightened slightly. That was the first real emotion she had seen on his face. "My people will verify your story," he said. "Until then, you stay where I can find you." Ruby's stomach dropped. "I have a life. Not today." Her hand gripped the card again. "I have a child to pick up." Something flickered in Dante's eyes. "A child. My sister's son. Milo. He's 7. I'm his guardian." Dante looked away for a brief second. And the change was so subtle Ruby almost thought she imagined it. But the air altered. The cold suspicion did not vanish. It shifted around something older. Something wounded. "Where is he, school?" "Name." Ruby stiffened. "No." His gaze returned to her. "Ruby." The way he said her name made her breath catch. Not soft. Not kind. But precise. As if he had decided it mattered. "You are holding evidence in an attempted breach of my private suite," he said. "If Bianca planted this, she used you. If someone else planted it, they may come after you. If you run. And I cannot protect you. I didn't ask for protection." "No," Dante said. "You asked to be believed." Ruby had no answer. Because that was exactly what she wanted. And somehow, he had seen it. The hotel suspended Ruby before sunset. They did it quietly. In a side office near the laundry level, with no witnesses except a potted plant and a security camera that probably didn't work. "Mr. A." Corman stood behind his desk, red-faced and nervous. "This is not a termination," he said. "It is a temporary removal from duty pending internal review." Ruby stared at him. "You mean pending whatever story Bianca tells?" Corman flinched. "Ms. Carter, you were found in possession of personal items belonging to a VIP guest. I found them under a bed. That has not been established." Ruby laughed once. Softly. "It hurt. You assigned me the suite, and I regret that." There it was. Not regret for what happened to her. Regret that his decision had become inconvenient. Ruby took off her name tag and placed it on his desk. Her fingers lingered over the little plastic badge. Ruby Carter Housekeeping. 8 years of early mornings. Double shifts. Aching knees. And smiles forced through insults. Reduced to one cheap badge on a desk. "I need this job," she said, hating the honesty as soon as it came out. Corman looked almost relieved that she sounded desperate. Desperate people were easier to control. Then I suggest you cooperate quietly. Ruby walked out before she said something that would make him feel like the victim. Dante was waiting by the service exit, not inside a black SUV, not surrounded by reporters or bodyguards, just standing there in the amber light of the desert evening, sleeves rolled to his forearms, tattoos dark against his skin, looking like violence, had learned patience and put on expensive shoes. Ruby stopped. What are you doing here? Waiting? For me, yes. Her heart gave an irritating little stumble. She covered it with anger. Did you come to make sure I don't run? His gaze moved over her face. Then to the badge missing from her uniform. They suspended you. You sound surprised. I told them not to touch your position. Ruby smiled without warmth. Then maybe you're not as powerful as everyone thinks. One of the men near the SUV stiffened. But Dante's eyes stayed on Ruby. You are angry with the wrong person. No, she said. I'm angry with everyone. The honesty hung between them. Dante opened the rear door of the SUV. I'll take you to your nephew. Ruby didn't move. I don't get into cars with strangers. I'm not a stranger. You're a criminal with good tailoring. For the second time that day, one of Dante's men looked like he had forgotten how to breathe. Dante's expression remained calm. You have two options, he said. You can let my driver take you safely, or you can walk to your car while three men who may already know your name decide whether you are more useful alive or silent. Ruby stared at him. The sun had dropped low behind the mountains. Palm shadows stretched across the service lot like bars. For the first time since the penthouse, she felt something besides humiliation. She felt watched. Not by Dante, by something beyond him. Ruby glanced toward the far end of the lot. A man in a gray valet jacket stood near the delivery gate, staring at her. When he realized she had noticed him, he turned away too quickly. Dante followed her gaze. His face changed. Barely. But all warmth left the air. Get in the car, Ruby. This time, she did. Milo was waiting outside his elementary school with his backpack between his feet and a frown too serious for a 7-year-old. He had Ruby's sister's eyes, that always hurt at unexpected times. The moment he saw her, he ran. Aunt Ruby stepped out of the SUV before Dante could send someone to open the door. Milo crashed into her arms, and she held him tight. Breathing in pencil shavings, cafeteria cookies, and sun-warmed hair. You're late, he said into her uniform. I know. I'm sorry. Ms. Alvarez said I had to wait in the office. I'm sorry. Baby. Milo looked past her. At the SUV. At Dante. At the two men who looked like they had never smiled in their lives. His small hand tightened in hers. Are they bad guys? Ruby opened her mouth. Dante answered before she could. Sometimes, Ruby shot him a look. Milo studied Dante with the fearless suspicion only children and people with nothing left to lose seemed to possess. Are you bad to her? Dante's eyes moved to Ruby. Something silent passed there. No, he said. Not to her. Ruby hated that her chest tightened. Absolutely hated it. Milo climbed into the car beside her, still watching Dante as if prepared to defend her with a backpack full of crayons. On the drive to Ruby's apartment, no one spoke much. The desert gave way to smaller streets, older buildings, laundromats, taco shops, faded strip malls, and apartment complexes where families worked hard enough to be exhausted, but not hard enough to escape rent. Ruby lived on the second floor of a beige building with cracked stairs and a courtyard fountain that had not worked since Christmas. Dante stepped out first. Ruby frowned. You don't need to walk us up. Yes, I do. No, you don't. He looked at her apartment building. Then, at the dark sedan, parked across the street with tinted windows. Ruby followed his gaze. Her mouth went dry. That car wasn't there this morning, she whispered. Dante moved closer, his body subtly angling between her and the street. Take Milo inside. What is happening inside? Ruby hated being ordered around, but she hated the way the sedan's engine started even more. She grabbed Milo's hand and hurried toward the stairs. They reached the second landing when the first gunshot cracked through the evening. Milo screamed. Ruby dropped over him instinctively, shielding his body with hers. Stucco exploded near the wall. Someone shouted below. Car tires shrieked. Then Dante was there. He came up the stairs like a nightmare with a heartbeat, one arm wrapping around Ruby and Milo, forcing them down behind the concrete railing as his men returned fire below. Stay down, he said into her ear. His body covered hers. The heat of him, the weight, the terrifying steadiness. Ruby could hear Milo crying beneath her. She could hear bullets hitting metal. She could hear Dante's breath, calm against the chaos. And then his hand closed over the back of her head, pressing her lower, protecting her, not like an obligation, but like an instinct he could not stop. For one bright, impossible second, Ruby was more afraid of how safe she felt beneath him than she was of the gunfire. The attack lasted less than a minute. It changed everything. Dante did not take Ruby to the police. He took her to a safe house in Indian Wells. Ruby fought him for the first 20 minutes. Then Milo fell asleep against her, exhausted from crying. And the fight drained out of her body like water from a cracked glass. The safe house did not look like one. It looked like a private desert estate hidden behind stone walls and iron gates, surrounded by olive trees and security cameras. Inside, it was all warm wood, white stone, low lighting, and silence. Not hotel luxury. Something older, more guarded. Dante gave Ruby and Milo a bedroom at the end of a hallway with a view of the dark mountains. Milo curled under the covers, still wearing his sneakers. Ruby sat beside him until his breathing evened out. When she stepped into the hallway, Dante was waiting. You used me, she said quietly. His expression did not change. No, they followed me because of what I found. Yes, because of you. Yes. She appreciated the honesty. It made her angrier. I was invisible yesterday, she said. Do you understand that invisible? I cleaned rooms. I packed lunches. I worried about rent. I was tired, but I knew the shape of my life. Then your fiancé hid something under a bed. And now men are shooting at my nephew. Dante's jaw flexed. At least he did not tell her to calm down. That would have been dangerous for both of them. I'll move him somewhere safe, he said. Ruby stepped closer before fear could stop her. You will not take him from me. Dante's eyes darkened. I did not say from you. No. But men like you make decisions in rooms women like me never get invited into. He studied her. The hallway light softened the hard lines of his face. For the first time, Ruby noticed the exhaustion beneath the control. Not weakness. Never that. But the cost of never letting anyone see pain. I had a brother, Dante said. The shift startled her. He had a daughter, Sophia, 6 years old. After he was killed, everyone wanted to use her name to make me bleed. Ruby's anger faltered. Dante looked past her, toward a closed door at the end of the hall. I know what it means to protect a child from a war they did not choose. The silence changed. Ruby followed his gaze. What happened to her? She is alive because almost no one knows she exists. Almost no one. The words trembled with hidden grief. Ruby should not have cared. She cared anyway. Is that why you're marrying Bianca? She asked. Dante's eyes returned to hers. Something dangerous entered them. You ask direct questions. You keep putting me in situations where indirect ones seem useless. For the first time, the corner of his mouth almost moved. Almost. The marriage is an alliance, he said. Her father controls men. I need quiet. If I break the engagement without proof of betrayal, I start a war that reaches Sophia. And if you marry her, I buy time. Ruby stared at him. That's a terrible reason to marry someone. I've heard worse. Have you heard love? The question escaped before she could stop it. Dante went still. Not frozen. Not offended. Still. As if the word had touched a place no one was allowed to reach. Love, he said softly, is a weakness people use when they cannot find a door. Ruby looked away first, because the sadness in that sentence felt too intimate. The next morning, Ruby woke to sunlight, the smell of coffee, and Milo laughing. She found him in the kitchen, sitting at the island, while Dante Ricci, feared by half the West Coast and possibly hunted by the other half, stood across from him, cutting pancakes into careful squares. Ruby stopped in the doorway. Milo pointed with his fork. He cuts them wrong. Dante looked down at the plate with the seriousness of a man reviewing assassination plans. They are squares. They're supposed to be triangles. Why? Because they taste better. Dante considered this. Then he cut each square diagonally. Milo nodded. Better. Ruby leaned against the doorway, caught between laughter and heartbreak. Dante looked up. Their eyes met. For a few seconds, the kitchen was just sunlight on stone counters, a child eating breakfast, and a man who looked like he had forgotten he was supposed to be terrifying. Then Dante's phone rang. The warmth vanished. He answered, listened, and walked toward the windows. Ruby heard only fragments. Where? Who leaked it? No. Keep her contained. I want the footage. When he ended the call, he turned to Ruby. You need to see something. In the study, Dante's security chief pulled up a news clip on a large screen. Ruby saw herself. A photo taken outside the resort service entrance. Her uniform, her face half turned. Dante standing near her. The headline beneath it made her stomach twist. Hotel cleaner accused in Mafia suite scandal. Then Bianca appeared in a video. Tearful and flawless. I never imagined someone would hate me simply for being loved. Bianca said, voice trembling for the camera. This woman invaded our private suite and planted horrible things to destroy my engagement. Ruby's ears rang. Milo's laughter from the kitchen seemed suddenly far away. Bianca continued. I hope she gets help. Jealousy can make people dangerous. Ruby turned away from the screen. Dante watched her. She's destroying my name. Ruby whispered. I'll stop it. How? By threatening people, buying the hotel, making someone disappear. His silence said enough. Ruby shook her head. No. That won't give me my dignity back. It'll just make everyone more afraid to tell the truth. Dante stepped closer. What do you want? Ruby looked at the screen again. Bianca's perfect face froze mid-tear. I want her exposed in a room full of people who believed her. Dante's gaze sharpened. The study darkened around them as clouds moved across the sun. She is hosting an engagement dinner tonight, he said. At the resort? Ruby laughed bitterly. The one where she celebrates marrying you after framing me. Yes. You're still going. I was. Ruby turned to him. Dante looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, now we are. The dress arrived at noon. Ruby stared at it like it might bite her. It was deep emerald. Elegant. With long sleeves and a neckline that did not apologize for her body. Not flashy. Not cruelly tight. Beautiful in a way Ruby had never allowed herself to choose inside a dressing room. She touched the fabric. No. Dante stood near the doorway of the guest room. Yes, I'm not your doll. No, I'm not your revenge. No, I'm not walking into a room full of rich people so they can stare at me while your fiancé calls me insane. Dante crossed the room slowly. Ruby's pulse betrayed her with every step he took. He stopped at a respectful distance. You will walk in with me, he said. No one will touch you. No one will raise their voice to you twice. And if you decide to leave, I will take you home myself. You don't own home anymore, she said. Men shot at it. His face hardened. I know. The guilt in those two words was quiet, but real. Ruby sat on the edge of the bed. I don't belong in that world. Neither do most people in it. She looked up. Dante's eyes moved over her face. Not her body. Somehow that undid her more. Why are you helping me? She asked. Because you told the truth when lying would have been easier. That's not enough for a man like you. No, he said. It isn't. The confession hung there. Ruby's heart began to beat too hard. Dante looked at the dress, then back at her. When I saw you in that suite, he said, holding evidence with your hands shaking, you were afraid, but you still challenged me. I was angry. I know. Maybe I'm still angry. I know that too. He almost reached for her. Ruby saw it. His hand lifted a fraction, as if he meant to touch a loose curl near her cheek. Then he stopped himself. The restraint felt more intimate than contact. His hand dropped. I do not become gentle quickly. Ruby. Her voice was softer when she answered. I didn't ask you to. No, Dante said. But you make me want to remember how. Then he left the room before she could respond. Ruby wore the dress. Not for him, she told herself. Not for the way his eyes changed when she stepped into the foyer. Not for the silence that fell over his men as if they knew better than to comment. Not for the strange ache in her chest when Milo said, Aunt Ruby, you look like a queen. And Dante, standing behind him, quietly said, he's right. She wore it because Bianca wanted her ashamed. And Ruby was tired of letting beautiful women with cruel hearts decide when she was allowed to feel beautiful. The Aurelia Palms Resort glittered that night like nothing dark had ever happened there. Lanterns glowed along the pathways. Champagne towers sparkled beneath chandeliers in the grand ballroom. Guests wore diamonds, silk, tuxedos, and false loyalties. A string quartet played near the windows while waiters moved like ghosts through conversations worth millions. The moment Ruby entered on Dante's arm, every head turned, not slowly, all at once. The room inhaled. Ruby felt it. The judgment, the shock, the pleasure some people took in seeing a woman like her in a place they believed she should only clean. Her instinct was to shrink. Dante's hands settled at the small of her back. Not possessive enough to trap her. Present enough to steady her. Breathe, he said without looking at her. I am not well. She almost smiled despite herself. Bianca stood at the center of the ballroom in a champagne-colored gown, surrounded by admirers. When she saw Ruby, her expression did something ugly before it became beautiful again. She came toward them slowly. Every step was performance. Dunch, Bianca said, voice sweet enough to poison tea. You brought staff as your guest now, a few people laughed. Ruby felt the sting. Of course she did. But Dante's hand did not move from her back. He looked at the men who had laughed. One by one. They stopped. Then he looked at Bianca. Ruby Carter is under my protection. The room went quieter. Bianca's eyes glittered. How noble. Does your protection extend to thieves? Ruby stepped forward before Dante could answer. No, she said. Only witnesses. A murmur moved through the crowd. Bianca tilted her head. Witness to what? Exactly. Ruby's mouth went dry. This was the moment. Every humiliating day of her life seemed to press behind her ribs. Every guest who snapped, every manager who warned her not to embarrass the hotel, every person who assumed her softness meant weakness. She looked at Bianca and saw not beauty, but fear wearing diamonds. The pouch under Dante's bed, Ruby said. The burner phone. The master key. The note with his room number circled. Bianca smiled. Still clinging to that fantasy, Dante lifted the burner phone. The smile slipped. This fantasy, he asked. Someone gasped. Bianca's father, Carlo Moretti, rose from a table near the front. He was older, silver-haired, with a face made of money and threats. Dunch, Carlo said carefully. Not here. Dante did not look at him. Yes, he said. Here. He tapped the phone screen. A recording played through the ballroom speakers. At first, there was static. Then Bianca's voice. Cold. Clear. Make the cleaner find it. Dante will believe what he sees before he believes what she says. Ruby's heart stopped. The room erupted in whispers. Then another voice answered. Male. Smooth. Amused. Under the bed, Bianca laughed on the recording. Where else would a maid look? Ruby felt the words hit her body before her mind understood them. Dante's hand flexed at his side. The male voice continued. After midnight, my men use the master key. Dante dies in his sleep. Ruby Carter takes the blame. The poor, jealous cleaner who wanted attention. Bianca's face had gone white. Dante turned the phone off. For one breath, no one moved. Then Ruby understood something that made the entire room tilt. She had not only found evidence, she had interrupted Dante's murder. Dante looked at Bianca, and the man Ruby had glimpsed in the kitchen vanished completely. In his place stood the Mafia boss everyone feared. How long, he asked. Bianca's mouth trembled, then hardened. Long enough to know you would never love me. Dante's voice was ice. So you chose murder. I chose survival. She snapped. Do you know what it is like to stand beside a man who looks at everyone like they are already dead? You would have married me for peace and buried me in silence. Lorenzo offered me an empire. At the name Lorenzo, Dante's men shifted. Carlo Moretti shouted, Bianca. Stop speaking. But Bianca was past saving herself. She turned on Ruby. And you, she hissed. You ruined everything because you couldn't keep your hands out of places they didn't belong. Ruby stepped closer. Her whole body shook, but her voice did not. No. Ruby said, I ruined everything because you forgot people like me still have eyes. The slap came fast. Bianca's hand cracked across Ruby's face before anyone stopped her. Ruby stumbled. Dante caught her. Not dramatically. Not gently. Immediately, his arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her against him as his other hand lifted. The entire ballroom froze. Bianca realized too late what she had done. Dante's voice was almost a whisper. Touch her again, he said, and the alliance ends with your bloodline begging at my door. Ruby should have been horrified. Part of her was another part. The wounded part she did not want to name. It felt protected in a way so fierce it scared her. Then the lights went out. The ballroom plunged into darkness. People screamed. Glass shattered. Gunfire exploded from the mezzanine. Dante pulled Ruby down behind a marble column, covering her body with his as bullets tore through flowers and chandeliers. Crystal rained from the ceiling like sharp diamonds. Stay with me, he said. Ruby's ears rang. Dante eyes on me. His face was inches from hers in the flashing emergency lights. Calm. Focused. Deadly. But beneath it, she saw fear. Not for himself. For hair, another shot cracked against the column. Dante flinched. Ruby saw red spreading beneath his black shirt. Her breath vanished. "You're hit. I've had worse." "That's not comforting." "It wasn't meant to be." He pulled a gun from beneath his jacket and fired twice without looking away from her for more than a second. Somewhere above them, a man cried out. Ruby pressed her hand to Dante's side. He inhaled sharply. Their eyes locked. The ballroom was chaos around them. Screaming guests. Armed men. Tables overturned. Bodyguards shouting orders. Bianca gone. But under that broken chandelier, with Ruby's palm against his wound and Dante's body shielding hers, something crossed between them that neither could deny anymore. Fear. Need. A terrible, impossible tenderness. Dante cupped the back of her neck. His forehead nearly touched hers. "If I tell you to run," he said, "you run." Ruby shook her head. "No." His eyes darkened. "Ruby, I am tired of men deciding where I go when they're afraid. This is not pride." "No," she whispered. "It's you bleeding because I found what she hid under a bed." A muscle jumped in his jaw. Then one of his men slid behind the column. "Boss, south exit clear." But Lorenzo's men took the service hall. Dante's expression changed. "Milo." Ruby breathed. Dante looked at her. The fear in his eyes became something worse. Lorenzo Vale had not come only for Dante. He had gone for the child. Ruby ran before Dante could stop her. The service corridors beneath the resort were a maze Ruby knew better than anyone. Laundry tunnels, staff elevators, storage rooms, utility doors that rich guests never saw, the hidden arteries beneath the luxury. She kicked off her heels and ran barefoot over cold concrete, emerald dress gathered in one hand. Dante behind her with 3 men and a bleeding wound he refused to acknowledge. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ruby answered with shaking hands. Milo's voice came through. Terrified. "Aunt Ruby." Ruby nearly broke. "Milo. Baby. Where are you?" A man's voice replaced his too. Smooth. Amused. "Come to the old spa wing. Ms. Carter. Bring Dante's phone. Come alone. Or the boy learns how expensive loyalty can be." The call ended. Ruby stopped so suddenly Dante almost collided with her. "What did he say?" Dante asked. Ruby could barely speak. "Old spa wing." Dante's face became lethal. "No." Ruby laughed once. Broken and breathless. "No, that's all you have. You are not going alone. He has Milo. And he wants me emotional." "You are emotional." Dante went still. Ruby stepped closer, furious and terrified. "You think I can't see it? You're bleeding. You're shaking with rage. You're looking at me like, if something happens to Milo, you'll burn the world down because you won't know how to comfort me." His silence was devastating, because it was true. Ruby's eyes filled, but she refused to let the tears fall. "I need you dangerous," she whispered, not reckless. Dante stared at her for one long second. Then he pressed the burner phone into her hand. "Take it. What let him think he has, what he wants? And you, I will be closer than his last breath." Ruby should not have trusted that. She did. The old spa wing had been closed for renovation for months. At night, it looked abandoned. All plastic sheeting, drained pools, exposed beams, and moonlight falling through dusty skylights. Ruby walked in alone. Her bare feet made no sound. "Milo," she called. A light snapped on. Milo sat tied to a chair near the empty mineral pool, crying silently. No blood. No visible injury. But fear had made him small. Ruby almost ran to him. A man stepped from the shadows. Lorenzo Vale was younger than Dante, prettier in a cruel way, dressed in a pale suit that made him look more like a groom than a killer. He smiled. "The hotel cleaner," he said. "I expected less." Ruby held up the burner phone. "Let him go." Soon, Bianca emerged behind him. Her gown was torn at the hem. Her perfect hair had come loose. Without the ballroom lights and admirers, her beauty looked harder, meaner. Ruby stared at her. "You used a child." Bianca's mouth twisted. "You used mine first." Ruby frowned. Lorenzo's expression sharpened. "Bianca." But she was unraveling. "He was never going to marry me." Bianca said, "Not really. Not while he was hiding that little girl like some sacred ghost." Ruby understood. Sophia, Dante's niece. The secret child Bianca had been trying to find. "You wanted the child," Ruby said. Bianca's eyes glittered. "I wanted leverage. Dante Ricci has no heart except for dead people and hidden children." Ruby thought of Dante cutting Milo's pancakes into triangles. "You're wrong." Bianca laughed. "Oh, don't tell me you think he loves you." Ruby said nothing. That was answer enough. Lorenzo smiled wider. "How sweet. The cleaner thinks the monster changed because he carried her out of gunfire." "He didn't carry me," Ruby said. "He stood beside me." Something in her voice made Bianca's face harden. Lorenzo stepped closer. "The phone." Ruby glanced at Milo. "Untie him first." Lorenzo sick head. "You are not in a position to negotiate." Ruby looked him in the eyes. "You're wrong. You need what's on this phone, or you would have killed me already." The smile faded slightly. Ruby felt the courage rising from someplace deeper than fear. "You need the recording erased before it reaches every family on the West Coast. You need Dante blamed before he proves Bianca betrayed him. And you need me alive long enough to look guilty." Lorenzo studied hair. "You clean rooms for a living?" "Yes," Ruby said. "Which means I know what people hide when they think no one is watching." A sound moved in the dark above them. Lorenzo looked up. Too late. The skylight shattered. Dante's men descended through the upper renovation scaffold. As the side doors burst open, black-clad figures flooded the old spa wing. Chaos erupted. Lorenzo grabbed Ruby, dragging her back against him, a gun rising to her throat. Milo screamed. Dante stepped into the light. He looked like something the desert had made from shadow and wrath. Blood darkened his shirt. His face was pale, but his eyes were alive with a violence so focused it felt holy. "Let her go," he said. Lorenzo pressed the gun closer. "Take one more step and she dies." Dante stopped. Everyone stopped. Ruby could feel Lorenzo's breath against her ear. Bianca stood near the empty pool, breathing hard, looking between Dante and Ruby with dawning horror. Because Dante Ricci, the man who supposedly loved nothing, looked afraid. Not weak, not defeated, afraid. For Ruby, Lorenzo saw it too. He smiled. "So it's true," he said. "The great Dante Ricci found a heart under a maid's uniform." Dante's gaze did not leave Ruby's. "Ruby," he said softly. Her body trembled, but his voice anchored her. "Remember what you told me," she swallowed. "That he was emotional, that he needed to be dangerous, not reckless." "Yes." "Then trust me." Lorenzo laughed. She should not. Ruby closed her eyes for half a second. Then she slammed her bare heel down onto Lorenzo's foot as hard as she could and threw her head back into his face. The gun fired upward. Dante moved. One shot. Clean. Lorenzo fell away from Ruby. Dante caught her before she hit the ground. His arms closed around her so tightly she could barely breathe. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. "No. Milo, he's safe." One of Dante's men had already cut Milo free. The boy ran into Ruby's arms, sobbing, and she dropped to her knees. Holding him with everything she had, Dante stood over them, gun lowered. The body turned toward every threat in the room. Bianca tried to run. She made it 3 steps before Dante spoke. "Stop." She stopped. Not because she wanted to, because his voice made disobedience feel impossible. Dante walked toward her slowly. Ruby covered Milo's ears. But she watched. Bianca lifted her chin, desperate to gather the scraps of her pride. "You won't kill me," she said. Not in front of her. Dante glanced back at Ruby. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. A choice. He looked at Bianca again. "No," he said. "I won't." Bianca exhaled. Then Dante continued. "You'll live long enough to watch every family you tried to impress turn their backs. You'll testify about Lorenzo. You'll confess what you did to Ruby Carter. And if you ever speak her name again without respect, you will wish I had chosen the easier punishment." Bianca's face crumpled. For the first time, she looked small. Not because she was less beautiful, because cruelty without power has no shape. 2 days later, Ruby's name was cleared in every place it had been dragged. The hotel issued a public apology written by lawyers in fear. Mr. Corman resigned before he could be fired. Bianca's recording spread through private circles first, then public ones. By morning, every guest who had laughed in the ballroom knew the truth. Ruby Carter had not stolen from a mafia boss's fiancé. She had saved his life. Reporters camped outside the resort. Strangers called her brave online. People who had ignored her for years suddenly wanted interviews. Ruby wanted none of it. She wanted sleep. She wanted Milo safe. She wanted to stop feeling Dante's absence every time her room went quiet. He had not come to see her after the old spa wing. His men were everywhere. Outside the safe house, at Milo's temporary school transfer, near the grocery store, at the clinic when Ruby had her bruised cheek examined. But Dante himself stayed away. On the 3rd night, Ruby found him outside. Not in the house. Not at the gate. Outside her bedroom window. Standing in the rain. Palm Springs almost never rained that way. But the desert storm had rolled in hard, turning the driveway black and shining, making the olive trees tremble in the wind. Dante stood beside a black SUV, soaked through. One hand pressed lightly against his bandaged side. Ruby went outside before she could talk herself out of it. "You look ridiculous," she said. He turned. Rain ran down his face. "You should be inside." "So should you?" "I didn't want to wake Milo. That's not why you stayed outside." His silence answered. Ruby stepped under the edge of the portico, arms folded against the cold. "You've been avoiding me." Yes. The honesty hurt more than an excuse. Why Dante looked away toward the dark mountains? Because when Lorenzo put a gun to your throat, I understood something. Ruby's pulse slowed. "Would I have enemies who can survive my anger?" He looked back at her. "I do not think they can survive my grief." Ruby's throat tightened. Dante stepped closer, stopping at the edge of the rain. "I told myself staying away from you was protection. And it is also cowardice." The words stunned her. From him. It sounded like blood drawn from stone. Ruby's voice softened. "You called love a weakness. I was wrong." Rain filled the silence between them. Dante's eyes moved over her face with a restraint that felt almost painful. "I do not know how to love gently," he said. "I know how to guard, to hunt, to punish, to remember every person who makes you flinch. I know how to stand outside a house all night because sleeping feels impossible if I cannot see the window where you are safe. Ruby's breath shook. That sounds terrifying. It is. To me. Um, don't you? I know. He did not step closer. That was the thing that broke her. He wanted to. She could see it in every line of his body. But he let her choose. Ruby walked into the rain. Dante went still. She stopped in front of him, close enough to feel the heat of him beneath the cold water. I'm not entering your world as a rescued woman, she said. No, I'm not becoming something you own. No, I have Milo. He will be protected as long as I breathe. Ruby's eyes filled, and Sophia Dante's face changed. Ruby reached for his hand. She deserves more than hiding forever. His fingers closed around hers slowly, as if he feared his own grip. I know. Then build a world where the children don't have to pay for the sins of adults. Dante looked at their joined hands, then back at her. With you, Ruby's heart hurt. With me beside you, she said. Not behind you. For the first time since she had known him, Dante smiled. Not much. Just enough to make him look briefly, dangerously human. Then he lifted her hand to his mouth and kissed her knuckles in the rain. Not as a performance, not as ownership, as a vow. 3 months later, Ruby returned to the Aurelia Palms Resort, not as housekeeping, as the new director of guest integrity and staff protection for the Ricci Hospitality Group. After Dante quietly purchased controlling interest in the property and publicly dedicated a fund to protect service workers from abuse, retaliation, and false accusations, Ruby told him the name was too dramatic. Dante told her dramatic was useful when people needed to be afraid of doing the wrong thing. She pretended to disagree. Milo loved the new office because it had a snack drawer. Sophia visited twice a week under a new name, with security discreet enough to let her feel like a child instead of a secret. She and Milo became immediate allies, mostly against adults who cut pancakes incorrectly. Dante did not become soft, not to the world. Men still lowered their voices when he entered rooms. Families still weighed their words around him. Enemies still disappeared from negotiations, looking as though they had seen the shape of their own endings. But with Ruby, he changed slowly. He learned to ask instead of command. Not always, but often enough that she noticed. He learned that silence could comfort instead of control. He learned that touching her waist in public made her blush, but defending her before she asked made her angry if he did not let her speak first. He learned that love was not weakness. It was responsibility with a pulse. On the night the rebuilt ballroom reopened, Ruby stood near the same marble column where Dante had shielded her from bullets. The crystal chandeliers had been replaced. The bullet scars were gone. Music filled the air again. Softer this time. Ruby wore a midnight blue dress. Dante stood beside her in black. Guests watched them from a respectful distance, curiosity burning behind polite smiles. Ruby looked around the room. This place used to make me feel small, she said. Dante's gaze remained on her, and now she smiled faintly. Now it looked smaller. His expression softened in that restrained way that still made her chest ache. Milo and Sophia ran past them, laughing, chased by one of Dante's most terrifying bodyguards carrying 2 juice boxes. Ruby laughed. Dante watched her like the sound had become necessary to him. Then he reached into his jacket. Ruby's smile faded when she saw the small velvet pouch in his hand. For a second, the past rushed back. The sweet, Bianca's voice, the accusation, the burner phone, the terrible moment Dante had looked at her like she might be guilty. Dante saw the memory cross her face. He stepped closer. This time, he said quietly, there is nothing hidden inside that can hurt you. Ruby stared at the pouch, then at him. What is it? He opened it. Inside was not a ring. It was her old hotel name tag, cleaned, polished, set into a small gold frame. Ruby Carter Housekeeping. Ruby's throat closed. Dante's voice lowered. I wanted you to remember who you were before anyone saw you. Before the headlines, before me, you were already brave when I met you. Her eyes filled. Dante. He took the name tag from the pouch and placed it in her palm. I misunderstood you once, he said. I will spend my life making sure you never stand alone in a room full of liars again. Ruby looked down at the badge. For years, that name tag had meant exhaustion, invisibility, survival. Now, in her hand, it felt like proof. Not that Dante had saved her, that she had saved herself long before he arrived. She looked up at him through tears. You still owe me for getting me suspended. A slow, rare smile touched his mouth. I bought the hotel. That is not an apology. No, he said, but I am prepared to keep trying. Ruby laughed, and Dante reached for her carefully, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His hand settled at her waist. The ballroom blurred around them. All gold light and music and whispers. The same world that once tried to humiliate her, now watched as Dante Ricci bent his head toward the woman they had mistaken for invisible. He stopped just before kissing her. Always that final moment of restraint. Always letting her choose. Ruby rose on her toes and closed the distance herself. The kiss was not soft at first. It was relief. Memory. Fire after fear. A promise born from danger and sharpened by every moment they had survived. When they pulled apart, Dante rested his forehead against hers. I am still dangerous, he whispered. Ruby smiled. I know. I am still afraid of losing you. I know that too. His thumb brushed lightly over her hand, over the framed name tag she still held. What do you want from me? Ruby Carter, she looked past him. To Milo and Sophia laughing beneath the chandeliers. To the staff moving through the room with heads held higher than before. To the desert night glowing beyond the windows. Then she looked back at the man who had entered her life as danger and stayed as devotion. Truth, she said. Respect. And pancakes cut into triangles. Dante's eyes warmed. Done. Outside, black SUVs waited under the palm trees. The desert wind moved softly through the resort lights, somewhere beyond the mountains. Enemies still whispered Dante Ricci's name with fear, but inside the ballroom, Ruby Carter stood in the center of the light, no longer invisible, no longer accused, no longer alone. And Dante Ricci, the most feared man in the room, held her like the world had finally given him something he was willing to become better for. Not safe, never ordinary, but hers. And for the first time in his life, that was enough.